All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this month's. Jeff, you can go on mute. Thank you. Everybody go on mute. Yeah, welcome to this month's talk about operating with impact. Super excited to have everybody here today. This is a big topic for us, and before I get into it, I just want to introduce myself again. So for those of you who I do know and don't know, so I'm Refugio Ref Atilano, uh, author of the Latino Leadership Playbook. Everything I do is Latino leadership. I'm a senior leader at AbbVie, which is a global pharma company. Although AbbVie does not sponsor this, this is my personal. These are my personal views and my personal talk. But really looking forward to today. When I think about my own development and why this topic is so important, it wasn't until a few years ago where, talking to senior leaders that I really understood the importance of impact leadership, how I impact the business, how I impact through my ERG leadership, how I impact my own career, how I impact others, right? It's really about, shaping, driving, all these components forward in meaningful and big ways. And as soon as I started, operating that way, things change, right? You get more visibility, you get more exposure. You get to deliver strong results and get on big initiatives, right? The things that help you stand out in the workplace, super, super critical. And so as we go through this, I want us to also think about our culture, right? As Latinos and other cultures, but as Latinos, I'll lead with is that, we're raised to work hard and keep your head down, right? In this activity or in this talk, I want to talk about strategies on, instead of keeping your head down, start lifting our chins and keeping our heads up, right? Looking through the forest and, coming up with ideas and innovating and driving great, business, ideas and outcomes. That's where we need to be. Still work hard, but looking really big picture. And today's really about that big picture mindset. In addition to the impact leadership, we'll also talk about taking ownership, which is just as important. Making sure we're raising our hand when nobody else does. Making sure we're driving things all the way through the end and we're collaborating and we're leading teams to realize great business outcomes. That's where we want to be. And again, this is all in the spirit of helping you stand out in the workplace in whatever industry you're in, whatever career level you're in. And I want to make sure that you're teed up for success. So with that, I want to show you what great looks like. And the best way I can do that is bringing some exceptional speakers. I met all these fine executives over the past, couple of years here. For instance, with Marissa, I think when we, speaking of impact, I think when we first spoke about, impact leadership, I always remember I was talking to you about, I want to get involved with DEI. And you're like, well, use that to drive business. I remember you told me that. And because of our conversation, I actually use diversity and culture to drive business today, which is a big part of my role currently at AbbVie. Jeff, you do amazing things in driving business and impacting, all communities, not just the Latino community, but really driving forward, PNC Bank in new, innovative, and growing ways. So really inspirational stuff. Dave, we worked at AbbVie. You were an incredible leader from an impact perspective. We worked on some things to impact your business and to help you and your team shape and deliver and get positioned for delivering great business outcomes. So it was a pleasure working with you from an impact perspective. And then Tony, I think you said it earlier in this call, we spoke to your Latino ERG and we were impacting careers by our conversation, right? We had a great discussion, very action focused, and those types of things. So all of you, super impactful. And I'd like to ask the audience, as you hear from these senior leaders, is to engage, right? I want everybody to engage hard. I want to see the comments. I want to feel the energy. But I also want you to take away, right, and action upon, not just listen, but really internalize and, and reflect, but then take action, because you're going to hear some really, really great things today. And I want to make sure we put these insights to use for our community. So with that, if you can in the chat, let me know where you're calling in from. That would be great. Please put that in. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and get started. And before we get started, let's lead with introductions. So Marissa, we'll lead with you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ref, for having me here. This is it's a pleasure. I am Marissa Solis. I am currently the Senior Vice President of our Global Brand and Consumer Marketing at the National Football League. I've been with the National Football League for 4 seasons now. I was previously at PepsiCo, so I spent 20 years of my career at PepsiCo. I have mostly been in CPG marketing, so started my career in Procter & Gamble. I did a little bit of management consulting with Deloitte. And lo and behold, I am now at the league. I also serve on a public board. I serve on Consolidated Communications, which is a broadband company, as a public board member. So very, very happy to be here.
Thank you, Marissa. It was great to have you. Jeff, I'll go to you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Well, again, a big fan of the NFL. It was great to see my Colts take the win over the Jets yesterday, as I got to watch it live here at MetLife Stadium in New York, New Jersey. So again, big win for the Colts. Jeff Martinez, I'm Executive Vice President, Head of Branch Banking for PNC Bank. So I get the privilege and honor to oversee and lead our almost 2,300 retail branches across 30 states, coast to coast, and our 15,000 employees that fill them. And again, truly the best of the best. Before that, I spent a little over 10 years at JP Morgan Chase. And so my over 22 years within the financial services industry has been split pretty equally between both PNC and JP Morgan. And again, really love and appreciate the retail banking. I think that's where many not only start their career, but for our consumers, really start their financial journey in home ownership and the first car that they get to purchase, or ultimately just their first credit card or checking account. Before that, I did spend 9 years in the United States Army, so got to proudly serve this country and try to bring a lot of that leadership, at least inspiration, I hope, or at least I tell myself as I lead every day. And for the audience, you can see I'm the one person without the right background, so that'll say a lot, but we'll get into that through the rest of the evening. But appreciate being part of this absolute distinguished panel.
Awesome, Jeff. And it's a pleasure and an honor to have you join us. Mr. Dave Tang.
Have to make sure I get myself off mute. I know I've done that many times in the past. As Ref mentioned, we had the pleasure of working together. My name is Dave Tang. I am a pharmacist by training. I actually had spent the last 25 years of my career in the pharmaceutical industry before retiring in June of 2023. My experience in the industry has been primarily US based for the first, I would say, a little more than half of my career. So was with AstraZeneca, where I was the VP of US Medical Affairs. Then I transitioned to get back to California from the East Coast. I joined Allergan, where I joined as the VP of US Medical Affairs for Allergan, but then soon transitioned into my first global role and ended my time at Allergan as the Vice President of the Global Medical Office. Most recently, I had a chance to work together with Ref and also partner with him on a number of projects that really made a huge impact for our medical organization at AbbVie. And just prior to retiring, I was the Vice President of Global Medical Operations at AbbVie. So pleasure to be with this distinguished panel and looking forward to the discussion.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Dave. Tony?
Dave, you're a tough act to follow. I've noticed in the comments that the Dave Tang fan club from Irvine is already logged in. So your following is here. Hello, everybody. It's great to be with you this evening. I'm Tony Heredia. I'm a Senior Vice President and Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer at Target. I've been at Target a little over 19 years. I've been in a variety of leadership roles, mostly in the risk, compliance, and corporate responsibility space. I've been actively involved in diversity and inclusion efforts in Target for the last 15 years. And outside of Target, I also sit on a board of a private Midwest bank here in Minnesota. It's great to be with everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Tony. And thanks everybody again for joining. So for the rest of this discussion, we're just going to do a Q&A with our distinguished panel here. And please have your notebooks out, take some notes, and throw your questions in the chat. We'll try to keep up with them. I know there's a lot going on there. We'll do our best. So with that, I'm going to kick us off. We're going to lead with two folks, Jeff and Marissa, on this question, and then the others, please chime in as needed, or we can jump to the next question after that. And Jeff, I'm going to lead with you. So to kick us off, what does operating with an impact mindset mean to you, and why is that important for our careers?
Yeah, great question. And so as I kind of reflected on this a bit, and just either whether through my own journey, lessons that I've learned, I'd say for me, I'd probably say I start with the end in sight and then build backwards. And so what can that mean? And, you may see or believe that translates easier to business. There's a revenue number at the end, the growth. But even when it comes to talent, and when I think of mentorships that I partake in, development sessions with leaders in my organization and throughout, it's what would I like to see accomplished? Now, some of that obviously is achieved together. So understanding both goals and aspirations on both sides. But I think what ultimately that sense of impact, you need to call it out at the beginning. And I think most of us are often, especially within the Latino community, we kind of just say forward is better or forward is enough. The next step is better than the last because we're building on things our parents have built. And I still remember my dad saying, like, son, mi hijo, yo quiero más para ti que tenía para mí, right? And so, like, early on, I just knew I had to be better than my dad, or at least that was his aspiration and one that I was taught. But then is that ultimately enough if it's not defined? And I think what ultimately, and again, very proud of the steps I took, but I found myself then early on in my career, and again, through the right leaders, working in the right organizations, I kept having to redraw the lines forward because in terms of impact, I never defined it. I always knew forward, progress, better, which again, there's nothing wrong with that sense as you're continuing to progress. But ultimately, there is a definition that's needed. And whether that's in the role you seek, the relationships you want to build. And I'll say I always reflected internally. So at PNC, we have these 25 leadership standards. And I remember publicly in my group, I'll always ask the team, what do they believe my most critical one is, or the one close to my heart? And one of those leadership standards is drive outcomes. So, of course, the team would say, of course, Jeff wants to drive outcomes, wants to grow the business, wants to grow the network, win market share. But I said, no, yes, that's all important. It is. But I said, to me, drive outcomes is a validator of all the 24 other leadership standards that get you there. And so I kind of phrased it in this way. I used to run a lot and run marathons and all that stuff. And so I said, I thought about getting a trainer in the morning. And so I would wake up early, get on this grind, continue to develop. But then at the end, like, my speed never changed. My time never changed. My precision never changed. Well, all the steps felt right. You got a trainer, you woke up early, you had the discipline. But the impact portion is what wasn't missing. And maybe it was at the beginning, hey, as you run or wake up for 10 nights, you'll cut 5 seconds off your time. As you do it for a month, you'll cut 10 seconds off your time. And so I think where it's important for both individuals, those that we lead or those that we inspire or mentor, is to have a very clear destination in mind. Because also throughout the journey, you get to call out your missteps. You get to call out your pivots. You get to call out your learnings. And so it's not because just the road is smoother once you call it out, but your destination at least becomes a focal point of discussion. So you can coach to it, develop, and obviously a sense of accountability for all those that involve. So without leading with impact, or especially what it means to me, you kind of have this, yes, forward progression or energy, but it may be misguided as you ultimately call out your final destination.
Love it, Jeff. And really, when I hear you talking, I hear thoughtfulness, right? Being thoughtful about where you need to be. And I love your story about your dad being, I think it was your dad, he was your bar of success, as was mine when I first came in my career, but not knowing the additional potential that might be there, right? And exploring that in a meaningful way. So all great points. Thank you. Marissa, same question to you. What does operating with an impact mindset mean to you, and why is it important?
Yeah, thank you, Ref. And Jeff, yes, I definitely agree with you. It is about a destination. For me, it's 2 simple things. Number 1 is adding value. It is having a growth mindset and adding value in everything you do. So you have to make yourself indispensable to your organization. And you operate with impact when everything you do adds value to whatever your organization does. That's on the business side, right? I think personally for me, operating with impact is about purpose and mission and what I believe in and my values and living my values every single day, and making sure that I'm super intentional with every action I take, right? So every action leads to my purpose, every action leads to some value that I provide, either to my organization as the business or to the people that I'm around and that I, seek to serve.
Love it. And Marissa, just to follow up on that, we talk in terms of adding value, business value. What's one of the best ways, to identify what that value could mean for you, as far as how you roll up to adding value and impact for the business? What's a strategy to accomplish that?
Yeah, I mean, the very first thing is you got to know your business cold. And I don't mean your business, like your job. I mean your organization's business. So you can be in one place, one little side of the business, but you got to know the holistic picture, right? Why does your organization exist? How does your organization make money? Who does your organization serve, right? You need to understand these things, because then you have to position yourself in a way to contribute. And the way I always looked at it was, I looked to the people that were most influential around me, and I made it my mission to solve their problems. And I would solve one person's problem, and then that person would lead me to their boss, and then I would solve their boss's problem, and then that person. And that's how I grew my career. I made it my mission to solve their problems related to the business, right? And our organization.
Yeah, I love that. Knowing your business cold, I mean, it puts you in a power position, right? Put you in an influential position, and not just hopefully your business, but you're also your industry, I'm guessing, too, to bring that expertise, to connect those dots and to drive ideas forward. I love all that. Thank you, Marissa. Dave, I'm going to go to you on the next question. When did you realize operating with an impact mindset was important, and how did it change your career?
Yeah, I just want to start with saying I love what Marissa had shared with everyone, because I think that's so true. I would say that for myself, when I realized impact was important was probably when I started my career. I think most of us join companies not just because we're looking for a steady paycheck. I mean, that's certainly important, but another piece of it, I think for many of us, it's because there's some value that this company delivers that's so important. There are people that depend on your company, regardless of what industry you're in. Ultimately, there's some service you bring. So, Ref, you and I being together in the pharmaceutical industry, I think we all know. I mean, for us, ultimately, good medicine is good business, and you want to make sure that patients get the best possible outcome with our products. So, as Marissa said, if you really understand the broader business, and then you can deep dive into understanding, well, how does my role contribute to that? So my first role, I mentioned, that's when I started realizing the impact was important, was when I first got into the industry. My first role was as a medical science liaison. Well, in that role in medical affairs, we play a unique role. I think our goal is also very much focused on the scientific aspects, is to help people understand how to use the medicines, how to answer questions about the products. But importantly, we're part of a broader business. And as I mentioned, the goal is to ensure that every healthcare provider that uses our product, every patient that receives our product, they have a good understanding of where it can benefit, but also importantly, where it doesn't. So to understand that piece, now you know that as you are part of a multidisciplinary team, right? You work with the sales force, you work with compliance, you work with our regulatory teams. There are so many different groups. I mean, obviously R&D, we're all working together on this goal. What really helped me early on as an MSL was understanding that for me as a field-based role, I'm out there with our sales colleagues. So understanding that I play a role in helping people understand it so that the sales team can do their jobs better, that was very important to me. It also helped me plan my day, because I would make some trade-offs that I thought were important because, again, the impact of it was greater. So I'll give you an example. Typically what we would do as field scientists would be that I plan my schedule. I meet with some of the top experts in the country, certainly in my region, and I would meet with them to work on whether it's research, to talk about projects, I should say, answer questions. But there's also an important opportunity where I can work together with the training team to train the sales force. And when I think about the possible impact I can have there to make sure that my sales colleagues understand the products, and certainly within what they're allowed to speak to, within label, understand how they can be their best. Like for me, that impact of committing time to that and rescheduling some of my own individual contributions, I thought that would be an example of when I might think about the overall impact and where I could actually help the overarching business move forward better.
Yeah, I love it, David. I love how you're working with so many different teams and showcasing that impact and making those inroads. Really, really great stuff. So thank you. Tony, same question to you. When did you realize operating with an impact mindset was important, and how did it benefit your career?
First, Dave, I got to say I love when anybody says working with compliance. Thank you. I'll tell you, before I was at Target, I was in management and technology consulting for about 5 years, and we did major projects for the federal government. And what I thought at the time, transitioning from a public safety practitioner role into a consulting role, I thought having an impact was going to be just flawless execution of really large projects that solved complex problems. But what I learned over time was those weren't actually the people having an impact in a consulting business. The people having an impact were the ones that were finding the next problem and building the next relationship and selling the next body of work to keep the team going and keep the firm growing. And the flawless execution was sort of a given after you'd been there a while. And so the people that really built their reputation, their credibility, started moving through the firm were the ones that could build a book of business based on a skill set, a capability, but they were constantly problem solving, looking over the horizon and getting the team ready to deliver on the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So that transitioned with me into the corporate world. And I learned really, really quickly. And I think Marissa and Dave have both hit on this. The people who figure out how to identify and move problems forward in an organization without necessarily being asked to are the ones that have impact. It's a lot harder than it sounds when it comes out of my mouth, because there's all kinds of things that go into that. Culture and politics and competition sometimes and these types of things. But I really picked up on, Marissa, your mention of being a problem solver. I think if you can figure out how to do this within the context of your business, your culture, in a way that also embodies teamwork and collaboration and a sense of selflessness, you really do embody what most organizations think of as somebody that operates with impact.
Love it. Thank you, Tony. And that theme of problem solving, I'm starting to see bubble up as well here. Really, really big in the corporate environment or all environments. You got to be a problem solver. All right, Marissa, I'm going to go to you. We're going to get a little bit more deeper here. When we think about, how we bring impact to life, what are some strategies that our community, really all, it doesn't matter our community, but anybody can use to really start to like I said, to activate impact? What are some things we need to consider, think about, do as we start to operate this way?
Yes, I mentioned knowing the business cold. I think that's table stakes, right? Mm-hmm. But I think, if you have a growth mindset, you're constantly learning. You don't stop learning. I learn something new every day. And I think the beauty is you have to have this insatiable curiosity and learn everything you can about pretty much anything, right? And once you start learning point A over here and point X over here, and they may not seem like they connect, but you said it, Rev, when you start connecting things that seem to be like they don't belong together, but then you connect them in very creative and innovative ways, you start to really, develop things that nobody's seen before. And to me, there's no better impact than trailblazing, right? Doing things that haven't been done, taking risks, like taking your organization to the next level. That's what it takes. So I would say read a lot, be curious, take risks, ask for help. Impact is not done alone. I think sometimes people think, oh, I got to do it on my own. But impact takes collaboration and working together with others, right? And making sure that you're bringing everyone with you, in that mission to move forward. So to me, is those things: learn every day, keep reading and be curious, and ask for help and move things forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, Marissa. And I like the learning and growth mindset. And I always use this quote, but Stedman Graham, Oprah's partner. I remember he was a podcast with Frank actually a couple of months ago, And he basically said, if you're not growing, if you're not developing, you're out, right? You're out of the running for all these really cool things. And so, yeah, and it doesn't end, right? All of us continue to grow. It doesn't matter where you are in your career. That never stops. You got to keep it fresh. You got to keep coming with new ideas and driving things forward. Thank you.
I mean, I'll just say, and not to date myself, but when I started my career, there were no cell phones. There was no internet. There was no, I mean, I was still writing memos. There was no email. And so in the course of my career, I saw the advent of, a cell phone, email. All of a sudden, Apple changed the world and you could do things, there were apps, and now we have AI. And I mean, it's just the way. And now, that was over the course of a 30-year career. That same 30-year change is happening every year now. I mean, the pace of change is so fast that you've got to just be comfortable in it and, be comfortable in that ambiguity. And that's how you drive innovation and impact.
Yeah, and I love that, being a problem solver. The ambiguity provides opportunity for problem solving. Absolutely. Tony, I'm going to go back to you. Same question, going deep, what are some strategies to activate operating with impact?
Yeah, I'm going to echo a lot of what Marissa said. And I love that you brought that example to life, Marissa. I remember I started my career in local government. When I wanted to learn about leadership, I had to go to the bookstore. And I had to peruse the physical shelves and pick out the books that I would take home and read. There weren't these kinds of things back then. I agree with everything Marissa said. I think the ways that you can do this is to look for the gaps in your organization that present opportunity. Because again, the people who figure out a way to solve problems, I call them builders also. They make something where nothing was before. They have a bias for action. But to echo Marissa's point, people who may seem bold and blaze a trail do not do it alone, because in most organizations, as fast as you can move forward, you're only going to move the actual organization forward as fast as the slowest person that needs to come with you. So you have to take time to get people on board, to share your ideas. And sometimes you need to find ways to let them contribute to the idea, because contrary to popular belief, rarely do you have an idea in an organization and say, this is my idea. And then people either say yes or no. It's a lot messier than that. And typically you might have the best idea in the world, but it's going to get better when other people give you perspectives and feedback and help shape it a little bit more. Not to mention, the most important thing for any human on the change curve is to feel like they had some say in the thing that they're about to be asked to come along in. So all of these things help you become a more effective builder over time. And the last thing you want anybody to say about you is that you're bold, but you're always acting alone. Because then people wonder if you're actually a team player, and whether you care about what's good for you versus what's good for the organization. The best thing about our community is we kind of have that naturally. We like to be with family, and we like to celebrate the successes of others, and this just comes naturally to us. So once we pick our heads up and look for more and more ways to do it, I find that for people that I've been able to work with over time, it just sort of comes naturally once you get over the fear of doing it.
Awesome. Yeah, love that, Tony. I like to bring others. And I was actually doing a follow-up. I think you answered it as, if you do try to do it alone, what are the repercussions of that, right? I think you said might come across a way you didn't want to come across.
I'll do you one better, Ref. I have tried to do it alone. And the feedback I got was, why are you always running ahead of everybody? Why are you always trying to make this about you? Which was particularly impactful to me, because I wasn't. I just thought that's the way you went and solved problems. I thought smart people had good ideas and they went and solved problems. That was my initiation to corporate culture 101 19 years ago.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Great points. All right, I'm going to switch gears here. So we talked about impact, and we had some great things, growth, taking ownership, collaborating, and all these other great insights. So I'm hoping everybody's really taking great notes here. And again, this will be on the replay as well. I'm going to switch gears here. I'm going to talk about ownership, right? It's really taking these ideas or new problems and taking ownership to bring those things to life. In this case, Jeff, I'm going to go to you. Talking about the ownership mindset, why is it important to take ownership in a workplace?
Yeah, so one, I just love how this conversation's transforming in terms of both the individual contributor, the leader, and again, you're better off leading through others and impacting others than just yourself. So just love that. And I was thinking about as we transition from impact to ownership, and I thought, like, what would ownership be without impact? And I don't know, that seems like the worst manager you can possibly have, maybe like a helicopter manager, a micromanager. And so to know that they are so synonymous in how you put both of them together, because again, that ownership, when connected to impact, just continues to create greater followership within your team, and obviously, the impact that we're all looking to cause. And so some of the things that I've thought about in terms of just the important piece of ownership, in some words, are things that I've reflected on that to me is always key is, one, it may not be your fault, but it's your problem. And I think we've heard that often as Marissa talked, hey, she found and solved other people's problems. Or when Tony mentioned, searching for the opportunity. I think often there's these cues and clues around us in our professional career, and frankly, even our personal career, that you kind of look on the side and say, well, that's not my fault. So why would I solve for something that I did not cause? And yet one of the things, both either as a leader of people, trying to be a leader, because that's a leader is not necessarily a title, but the view that others take on you. But again, always lending yourself for trying to solve for the greater good. And yes, that may often be solving someone else's problem that on that initial set may not believe that comes with all the credentials or visibility that you may want. But do that over and over, and you'll realize how quickly you get the theme or title of being an owner, of being a problem solver. One of the things also, as I alluded to a little bit of my military career, there's this nonprofit called the Travis Manion Foundation around wounded veterans. And one of the theme of that, or the mantra of that organization is, if not me, then who? I will tell you, I personally approach my everyday with that theme. If not me, then who? And what that has helped me to solve for, and I've seen it in my own business, and it's interesting as some of our retail branches or team may find their moments of being understaffed. I have found that when you put that tension in the system, often that understaffed, everyone believes they have to do it because they're understaffed. So let me go grab the door. Let me help that client. Let me answer that phone. I double the staff and people don't know their place. Well, oh, you know what? I won't get that phone. Marissa will answer it. I won't respond to that email because Dave will answer it. And so this whole theme of if not me, then who creates this absolute visibility of I'm going to take ownership in every opportunity that I can. So hopefully those themes have covered you as an individual, but then you take the cultural impact, and where, again, I love where this conversation is going, is how do you create a culture of extreme ownership? Now, a lot of it, and I said it in a recent conference, I try to grab a theme of myself of like, know the way, show the way, and get out of the way. And that last part to me is where you build ownership amongst everyone else. So yes, it takes a leader to show, it takes one to demonstrate what ownership looks like, what leading through impact to the end means. But then as you've built that culture on peers and your team, for your company, so you think you will absolutely get accolades and recognition if you yourself are known as an owner of the business, an owner of the problem, a solver, but you will break records and reach your Hall of Fame if you get the theme of creating teams with extreme ownership. That is so valuable in this organization, in any organization, to have those transferable skills and the leadership prowess that comes, again, by demonstrating what you know, living the values that you speak, so not words but actions, but then being able to carry that through your team in a way that they emulate. Now, again, that's similar. You can go back to the things we've started, building a team of ownership. You got to have impact at the end. So you kind of plan, how do I get from that sense and that culture building? And then what is it at the first individual, a team, a group? But again, ownership ultimately is what we all take, and it separates the difference. Most people believe the extra mile is something special. It's ownership. It really is. Because for someone who's owning the problem, the talent, the business revenue, It may not be an extra mile. It may be an extra 10 miles. It may be an extra 100 miles. When you truly believe in ownership, you don't end until the job is done, until the mission is carried.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm glad we're recording this because that's just gold, man. I appreciate it. Absolutely love it. Thank you. Dave, I'm gonna go to you. Again, same thing. Ownership mindset. Why is it important to take ownership in a workplace?
Yeah, and I think just the wisdom from Jeff, Marissa, and Tony. I think they've already highlighted it. I fully agree with Jeff. I don't think that ownership is anything that you can separate from impact. I think they're intertwined. For me, I believe that ownership's kind of that natural transition where if you want to be a leader, you need to think more broadly about the organization. Tony mentioned he was happy to hear about compliance. For me, compliance is an important partner because if you're working in any industry, it's not just to win. You need to win the right way, right? There's a right and a wrong way of doing things. Or as one of my mentors said, there's no right way to do the wrong thing, right? Mm-hmm. So that's just one example of with the ownership mindset, you're thinking about the big picture. You're not thinking about hitting a near-term number. You're not thinking about, getting a quick win. You're not competing against other folks within the organization, because if you're thinking about what benefits the overall organization and also the promise that your organization made to the customers, I think that's kind of overarching. And the other themes, I'm also from the generation where when I started, we had cell phones, but they were probably the size of a box of boots, right? Huge. But now that we've advanced, and as Marissa said earlier, technology is coming so quickly. When you have an ownership mindset, you start anticipating these changes that come, right? And you also start thinking about not just your own, day-to-day, what do I do? What am I responsible for? You start thinking about how can you apply that for whether it's your broader team, how it might help your colleagues. I think AI is a great example. I think there's often, I would say, two major camps of folks. Some people that feel a little bit threatened by it. And I'd say other people who are already thinking about, well, how can I use it to take care of the repetitive stuff that I don't want to spend that much time with, so I can focus on areas where, again, we'll use the impact word again, where I think I can have the most impact for our patients, for our customers that depend on us, for the students out there that need help in this area. So that's where I feel the ownership mindset kind of takes that beyond. I would say some of my best experiences have been working in cross-functional teams, cross-functional groups where we are there together to solve a problem that's beyond just any one of our individual departments. One example that comes to mind was, early in my career, we had a project where we were actually trying to understand how much support we provided to one of the national societies around a very specific disease area. Now, I can certainly tally up my area, but that's only a small fraction of what the overall organization was doing. So working with leaders in other functions. And the reason that we wanted to do that was that we were also able to best use that resource, because if we gave everything to one group and then we didn't support another, that can have a real impact on patients and the advocates that are depending on some funding, for example. So again, the ownership mindset, I think it takes it to a broader level. And again, you're adapting to new opportunities. You're looking at changes in the environment. You're looking at how you can change not only your own, book of business, your own shop, your department, but you're also thinking about how can I work with others to make sure that the end result that comes out from all of us is collectively is going to be better. Because I'm probably talking more to the corporate setting, but I would say in any business, how you win together. Right? If your business is booming, it doesn't matter if you're a small business. It doesn't matter if you're a large multinational corporation. That's always going to be greater success, greater impact, really the ability to deliver on your mission. And I would also say that for individuals in your career, that's going to pay dividends there. Because as we mentioned earlier, you heard the term problem solver come up from all of us. And you want to be seen, and you want your whole team to be seen as that kind of go-to group that says, if we're trying to pull together some brains to kind of figure out a challenge, who would we want to bring in? And I think that, as someone with an ownership mindset, someone who has, also transferred that thinking to your team, there's a high probability that your group's going to be brought in when there's something really important to work on. Yeah,
thank you, Dave. Love it. And just a couple of things, I love the big picture piece. And you talked about a lot of things, but big picture kind of falls in line with the, trailblazing that Marissa brought up earlier. just really, really great stuff. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to the next question. Marissa, I'm going to go to you on this one. And I know we kind of hit on a lot of these points already, but just any additional perspectives. But what do you look for in somebody who takes extreme ownership? What are some of those key traits, behaviors, values that you look for that stand out in the workplace?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's accountability, and accountability for the broader, it's like you're living the mission of the organization. So you're not saying, well, my job description is X, and therefore I'm only doing X. You're going above and beyond every day. The above and beyond is the norm, right?
Mm.
You're always being proactive and seeking opportunities to help, to move things forward, to do things that haven't been done before. That to me is full ownership. And I think Jeff, you said it, which I think is worth repeating. Ownership and accountability also means there's no finger pointing, right? Everybody's in it together. And if there's a failure or if there's a step backwards, you're not taking the time to finger point or figure out who to blame. You're figuring out how to move ahead, how to bring everyone with you and say, hey, let's see what we can learn from this mistake and let's move forward and keep going. That to me is true ownership, right? So it's always expanding that circle of influence that you have. You can have a small influence right now, but if you have full ownership mindset and a growth mindset and you're learning and taking risks, that influence continues to expand. And that's how you grow your career.
Absolutely. Marissa, just a quick follow-up. For those who don't go above and beyond or reluctant to go above and beyond, or I don't get paid to go above and beyond, what would be your recommendation with that mindset, and how do we shift that?
I mean, honestly, I kind of said going above and beyond is the norm. I know in my organization, if you didn't go above and beyond or you were just there to collect a paycheck, you probably wouldn't be there long. And I'm saying that because, let's face it, we live in a very competitive world, right? And organizations that are winning organizations want winners to be in their organizations. And winners, and Tony, I think you were alluding to it, not winners that are bold and just go their own way, winners that are team players, that are willing to roll up their sleeves and yes, go above and beyond what is what is stated in the job description. The last 4 roles that I had at PepsiCo didn't exist before I took them. They were created for me because there were things that I was doing and that I wanted to do and that I wanted to advance. And they were jobs that were just created. And I think the future, which the future is now, is that like the jobs of next year don't exist today. You have to kind of create them yourself. And if you're just there to, do the job description, you're probably not going to be there long, unfortunately.
Yeah, great insights. Again, our audience needs to hear this, right? Going above and beyond is the norm. Table stakes. It's what's going to help you advance in your career or create new opportunities and roles, like in your case, Marissa. So thank you. Tony, same question to you. What do you look for in someone who takes ownership?
Yeah, first I got to say, the way I would have answered your question, if you don't want to go above and beyond, you should check yourself before you wreck yourself. That's immediately what happened, because you're just not going to, whatever aspirations you have, you're going to keep wondering why they never come true, why the workplace fairy has never come and anointed you, senior executive. It just doesn't work that way. And I think people who experiment with this, they figure it out. What I look for, people who understand the power of and. We talked about this a little bit. You need to be individually proactive and constantly connected with others. You got to have your own ideas and be out there collaborating all the time. You got to become a student of the culture of your organization so well that you can teach it to other people. Why? Because organizations are these living, breathing things. They have unique norms and patterns and behaviors and values, and you learn about them by what you watch people do, more so than what you hear them say. Why do you do this? I firmly believe if you can learn your culture so well, you can teach it to others. Now you know how to navigate it better than anybody else. And the key to having an impact and implementing change over time is knowing how to navigate navigate the culture of your organization.
All right, I think
Dipping
we
your toe
lost.
in this water.
Yeah, Tony,
Hear
you
me?
froze up just a hair there.
Uh-oh. Last thing I'll say is there's no such thing as dipping your toe in the water. You're either all the way in or you're not.
Mm.
And I want to amplify the fact that you have to, as an owner, you have to absorb the loss while you share credit for the wins. And then people will really, really come to trust you and go with you wherever you want to go.
Absolutely. Extreme ownership, man. I think you hit them all there, Tony. Thank you. And I like the all the way in. There's no such thing as only a toe in. Love that. All right. Thank you. Phenomenal insights. And I'm going to switch gears here. I'm going to go to, I'm actually going to go to Dave on this one. What strategies can we use to put ourselves in position to take ownership of meaningful work? You know, how do we get in those really high impact, identify and engage in those high impact opportunities to actually position myself to take ownership?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ref. And I think the exciting thing is that I would say for the most part, there's more opportunities than there are hours in the day to take them on. Now, from all of us here, you've heard that, that term going above and beyond. And I did want to spend a moment there to say, going above and beyond means that, as you start thinking about these strategies to, have this ownership mindset, to have more impact, don't forget the day job, because these are above and beyond. So you want to make sure you're also really solid on the core before you start, looking for special projects or, getting involved in things that are really not what the organization might count on you for. So I put that out there, not to be a downer, but just to say that, hey, there are some things that we all do to kind of, you build your core and then you can start expanding out and taking on these other opportunities. The strategies that I think about are actually around where you can see an opportunity to work with other groups to solve a common shared, I won't even say problem, but opportunity for the organization to take on something that's new. Great example would be if there is a group that's coming together to assess a new technology, for example. In our space, that comes up quite often. To be a part of that discussion, to contribute to that, to work, and to also be someone who's a connector, to say, you know what, I may not be the right person or the expert on this, but we've got to bring Tony in to talk about this. We need to get Jeff's view on this because he's actually out there looking at it from a finance perspective, and there's some possible implications. So really, the strategies are to be one who, as you think about the broader opportunity, you're also identifying in your mind, like who are those other colleagues, those other people that can really contribute to making sure that this overall project that you're working on is a success. Because I think, as we've all agreed here, when you succeed together, that's really the win for the overall group. That's also how you build trust, confidence in your own team, but also with other colleagues and stakeholders that you rely on and that will inevitably rely on you as well. So I think that's an important piece of it as well. So being that connector, identifying those opportunities for bigger wins for the broader organization, especially in areas where it's kind of out of the comfort zone because it's something new. I think those are always great areas to pursue, especially if you're already someone who's knocking it out of the park in your day job.
Awesome. Love it, Dave. Yeah. And just really quickly, if you can comment on the importance of, let's just say you're taking care of your core opportunities, you identify these other opportunities, above and beyond opportunities. Talk about the importance of staying closely connected with your direct leader.
I think that's actually a great consideration. It's when you're staying connected with your immediate leader, it also gives them a sense of what you're working on and also helps them understand purpose, right? I think human nature, we don't like mysteries. So when people aren't sure what's going on, they're going to make up their own explanation for what's going on. And oftentimes it's something that's either scarier or not necessarily accurate. So if you keep people in the dark, that's sometimes a risk that you run when you're off trying to work on other areas. So I think working directly with your leader, I think that's one important piece. The other piece that's, I think, just as important, and I will expand it not just to your leader, but also to your mentors, is that your leader actually can be a great advocate for you. Someone who has, experiences that you may not have, someone who might be a sounding board for you. And for many of us who, when we start our careers, we're fortunate enough to have those mentors who are willing to invest time and energy into us. It's so helpful. In fact, some of the most important mentors I've had are folks that I found are in a different department or not directly in my line of work or in our chain of command for leadership. because it almost gives you someone that you can talk to that provides a safe environment to bounce ideas, to test out like, hey, here's how I'm going to approach my communication strategy on this topic. And someone who perhaps may not understand the science, but understands the politics of the organization, or understands, let's say, the financial considerations, that can be incredibly valuable. So again, in addition to your own leader, I would say also think about your network of mentors and make sure you leverage them, because that, again, the more people you bring together to solve that problem, the greater your likelihood of succeeding.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. And Jeff, same question to you before we go into our final question is, just to recap, what are some strategies we can use to put ourselves in position to take ownership?
Yeah, and so I'll start by the 2 words of caution that we heard from Tony and Dave that I think are important, that there's no such thing as dipping your toe in. That is critical. I can't tell you how many reputations have been impacted because they volunteered for something that they didn't take full ownership of or truly see it all the way through impact, that then sets someone back. And so it's absolutely important that you take Dave's point is don't pick a fight if you're not winning the one you're in. It is absolutely clear that your core responsibilities or your core extracurricular activities, you are at the point of mastery, because all these other things will continue to challenge your additional bandwidth. Don't solve for the problems of someone else if the audience is going to look and say, hey, that person has more problems on their own. And so there is a lot of stuff of this kind of self-reflection or self-pause that, as I kind of give some bullet points, just I can't heed those word of cautions enough. One of the words that I've heard often throughout is curiosity. Let curiosity be your guiding light to continue to jump into things that take you out of your comfort zone. Those are the things you raise your hand and volunteer for. Those are where you jump in front of problems that you've never tried to solve before. That curiosity or path to yes is so critical as a mindset to take on in everything that you're trying to do. One is awareness. See something, do something. And so you see those things, those cues you get from other leaders, maybe in your same line of business or others, but think about what would your approach be. One of the maybe most practical advice I give to those that seek mentorship is often mentorship starts with what can you do for me? Rarely does it start with what I can do for you. I've never seen a mentorship get declined because the person is willing to offer their time and energy to solve something for someone else's business. And so you want to get practical, not only in whether your line of business, a board, someone personally or professionally. Understand, as you always should, where you're seeking out mentorship, but go one step forward and see what are gaps that they're seeing. What does your experience lend to something that they may be possibly looking to solve for? That is an open door that will open up even further doors. But it takes that time, that intentionality, and that purpose to be able to create that piece. And again, I just can't say it enough. Volunteer for things, as you do your core job extremely well. That'll give you and afford you the opportunities to show what you can do as a problem solver, as an owner, and obviously the impact that you can create as a leader or individual contributor.
Yeah, love, Jeff, especially the way you wrap that up. It's I just hear all these great brand. And Jeff, if you unmute, I'm sorry, I get a lot of feedback on your end. No worries. But I just hear all these brand elements, these leadership brand elements that just bubble up. And those are all great things, a great place to be for your career. So thank you for sharing. All right, I think we have like 6 minutes left. So I'm going to wrap it up. Question for all of you. Doesn't have to be impact or ownership focus. It can be if you want. But what's the, for those, for all the professionals, for every students, professionals, everybody on this call, what is, as an executive leader, what is the one piece of advice that you want to let everybody know? If you want to climb up these leadership ranks, what's the one piece of additional advice that you would like to leave the audience with? And Tony, I'm going to start with you on this, and then I'll go to Dave.
Okay, well, before we started this, I was going to say that you have to find a way to learn about the business, no matter what your role is. But Marissa's covered that. So I'm shifting gears. I want to end this on an inverse of what Jeff was just talking about. What I mean by that is You cannot, as committed as you might be to acting as an owner, solving problems, being bold, you cannot wait to be tapped on the shoulder to go do it. And not everybody is blessed with a boss who's going to embrace your great ideas and figure out a way to make it happen for you. Sometimes what Jeff was talking about there at the end was, how do you create pull demand for your services when you're ready, willing, able, in the right position? Sometimes, be careful how I say this, sometimes if your boss isn't going to do it for you, you got to find a way to have somebody else ask you to come do it. You got to work through your networks. You got to compare notes with people. You got to find, people often think of a sponsor as someone that just blindly puts their name on you and then suddenly you're elevated through the hierarchy. In reality, sponsors are somebody who might actually find a way to get you on that extra project or get you out of your heads down work long enough to show what you can really do. So don't be discouraged when people aren't tapping you on the shoulder and the first time you go to your boss, they're like, well, aren't you kind of busy with the work I gave you yesterday? There's always ways around this if you are as good and as self-aware as what you just heard Jeff, Marissa, Dave talk about. So I would leave people with that thought.
Awesome. Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it. Dave, same question to you.
Yeah, since Tony mentioned self-aware, I would say that one nugget I would give to folks is ask for feedback from your manager, from your peers. We all have blind spots, but we also have blind spots, not just for bad things, but also for good things. And there may be some strengths that you want to focus on to develop more. When I think about some of the skills that then you take that feedback and you might direct it towards, these are things that if you ask your leader, and also you talk to folks beyond just your immediate circle, it will help you, because in future opportunities, it's very rare that it's just a single department or a single person making those decisions. A lot of the decisions are made based on conversations with other folks that you interact with or that your department interacts with. So I would say taking time to gather that feedback, to then put that feedback to action, to improve in those areas. I think that's really a gift if other people are willing to share that with you. And certainly once you have that and you have ideas, as we heard earlier, about trying to move forward on perhaps getting yourself involved in projects or pushing forward new ideas, I would say having confidence in how you communicate that. I'll throw that in as my kind of additional nugget that I'll put out there, as well, as to think that part through, be respectful, but also be confident in what you're trying to present. Make sure that it's well thought through. Oftentimes leaders want to make sure they're talking to someone that not just tells you about the what, but also the why and the how. I think that part's really important as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. Great stuff. Jeff, I'll go to you and I'll wrap up with Marissa. Same question.
Yeah, I don't know if my screen's black. It's what I see. So I think it's so much nuggets that at least on my side, I can't see myself. So hopefully everyone else can. And I'll keep it simple. And again, probably a couple different thoughts going in. But I heard something recently that to me quantified a mindset that's important. And so really hit home with me on obviously anything connected to profitability. It fits in obviously not all in all of our worlds, but especially in the financial sector. And the quote is, believing you can is more profitable than believing you can't. And I don't know in terms of like outcome, impact, ownership, but just the thought of, again, thinking you can is an unprofitable thought. It's an unprofitable mindset. And so why start off with anything that is unprofitable? Because even if you fail, you are in pursuit of profit, whether personal, whether professional, accolades, monetary. And so just, it's simple, but I think again, in this connection to profitability, it just hit home with me. And so it's one, if you take everything we've wrapped up today, just in the mindset of thinking you can drives profit, it's again, something that I think for me, at least in a short period, has really made an impact.
Jeff, I love that positive mindset, going in the right direction. Awesome. Marissa, we're going to wrap this up with you. And then once you answer Marissa, we'll let everybody go. And if I can ask everybody to stay on after, that'd be great for a couple of minutes. So Marissa, last question to you, same thing, and last nugget for the audience.
Sure. I always say, be a lifelong learner and have this insatiable curiosity. And part of that is seeking perspectives and people that are different than yourselves. And I want to leave that because it's so important. Sometimes as Latinos, we just want to be with Latinos and the Latino. you got to seek out people that are different, that think differently, that you disagree with, because when you ask them why do you feel this way? Why do you think this is the way it should be done versus this way? A, you learn, but B, you establish trust, and then later you can influence back. And so that to me is one of the most important things you can do, is seek those different perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely love it. And a lot of my mentors throughout my career have been non-Latinos and a lot of women, right? A lot of white women, to be honest. And it's been, they provided something I could never get, through my own channel. So that's a great insight. Panelists, I want to thank you all tremendously. This has been a very insights, action-packed hour. This will be available for replay. I'm sure it's going to get a lot of views, but this is one for the books, in my opinion. Everybody should really listen to this. This has been a great talk. And I want to do one final thank you to Dave, Tony, Marissa, Jeff for their time. And we'd like to thank the audience for joining us. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. My next webcast will be in January. So we're taking December off, and we'll talk more about Latinos in the boardroom. So more to come on that after New Year. But until then, everybody, if we don't talk, happy holidays. And we'll see you soon. All right.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
All right. If everybody could stay on, that'd be great.